The long wait is over, and as Ferrari would say, it's Rawe Ceek, which means we can look forward to an entire weekend of sitting on the sofa watching Formula 1. Oh, how I have missed having an excuse to not see my friends on the weekend. This weekend's Azerbaijan Grand Prix will feature the first sprint race of the season and a completely reworked weekend format. Will it bring more excitement to the sprint race? Will it cause chaos? Will the team principals complain incessantly about it? Well, you probably already know the answer to that last question, but nonetheless, we'll check it all out in today's video, so don't go anywhere. I want to apologise before we get started if the voiceover sounds a bit funky today. The weather in England is miserable, and the lack of Formula 1 recently has meant I've had to spend time outdoors. Unfortunately, I caught a cold while getting my yearly dose of fresh air. I've taken enough flu medicine to knock out an elephant though, so hopefully it isn't too noticeable. Now you've finished laughing at my misfortune, let's get started with a Baku Grand Prix preview. At times over the past few weeks, I'd kind of forgotten that there was even a Formula 1 season going on. It has felt like a winter break, the wait has been so long. Luckily, the Stadium Super Trucks at Long Beach and the World Rally Championship in Croatia have kept me sane, but I'm glad Formula 1 is back. The Baku race is going to be completely action-packed this weekend as well, with 3 days of action thanks to a reformatted sprint race weekend. Or at least we think it will. Formula 1 haven't actually confirmed the running order for the weekend yet, despite the fact I'm writing this on Monday morning, roughly 96 hours before the cars are meant to hit the track on Friday morning. But I'm going to assume the new format is going to be used because it's actually really exciting. The old sprint weekends began with free practice 1 and then sprint qualifying on Friday, then free practice 2 and the sprint race on Saturday, followed by the normal Sunday race. The potential new format will make the Friday qualifying even more impactful though, and will make the early session on Saturday a must-watch. The proposed changes will keep the practice session, but then the qualifying on Friday will be for the race on Sunday. It'll be a normal qualifying format, just like any other weekend, but on Friday instead of Saturday. If you're like me, and you absolutely love qualifying, then this makes the Friday session a must-watch. The free practice session will also be the only one of the weekend. With a number of upgrades rumoured to be coming to the cars this weekend, teams will have to work fast and efficiently to get their setups dialed in. If anyone gets the setup wrong or can't get their upgrades dialed in, then it will have a massive knock-on effect for the race on Sunday. I'll be keeping my fingers crossed for a few surprises on the starting grid on Sunday. Now that the sprint race finishing positions no longer dictate the grid for Sunday, it essentially becomes its own self-contained day of action, with a qualifying session to determine the sprint starting grid before the 30-minute race itself. It's only a tweak, but with the sprint becoming a standalone event and barring any catastrophic car damage no longer having an effect on the Grand Prix, should, in theory, make the short race more exciting to watch than the offerings we've seen before. Arguments about whether such changes were needed or wanted in the first place aside, it'll be interesting to see if the tweaks have the desired effect, and whether the teams and drivers become more enthusiastic about the format going forward. Speaking of those arguments over whether the changes are needed or not, Fred Vasseur has kind of ended it for us. For once, I think all the teams were aligned, he told the media when asked if the teams support the changes. It's not very often that is the case, so we have to jump on it. Replacing another practice session with qualifying makes the format more dynamic, said Vasseur. You can discuss about why you had to do it so late, but at the end of the day, I think that we're all aligned that we have to push for it. One criticism of the sprint format following its introduction in 2021 was the lack of interest in Saturday's practice session, due to qualifying having already taken place by that stage in the weekend, and the teams having finalised their car setups. Vasseur said he likes the proposed new format. Remember, you can't make major changes to car setups after qualifying due to Parc Fermé rules, so the old FP2 was pretty much useless. I'm not a big fan of the usual FP2, said Fred. Sometimes it's a bit boring. Not for us because we have a lot of data, but I can imagine for the spectators. Even for you if you don't know about the level of fuel, the engine mode and so that you have, it is a bit boring. To try have something more dynamic during the weekends is a good decision. And then on the other hand, I think it's also true that if you watch football, you're not watching the session on Wednesday when they're training in the stadium. We're probably the only sport where we are putting on TV the training session. At this point you might be wondering, if the Ferrari boss says everyone is up for the changes, then why were you talking about chaos and team boss complaints in the intro? Well, that's a great question, so let me answer it for you. This is the third year of the sprint race format. Some things in Formula 1 move very slowly. Not the cars, obviously. meaning that getting things right can take time. The sprint races are one of those things. Back when they debuted in 2021, we had 3 of them, the first of which was held at Silverstone in July, the 10th round of that season. In 2022, the points for them were increased, but we still only had 3 races. The first was at Imola at the end of April, which was the 4th round of the season. This time around we have 6, a new format, and the first will be at round 4 at the end of April again. This is important because the big complaint from team bosses about the sprint race seems to be to do with the timing of it and the choice of track. The reality is it's absolutely ludicrous to be doing the first sprint race of the year at a street race like Azerbaijan, said Red Bull boss Christian Horner. But I think from a spectacle point of view, from a fan point of view, it's probably going to be one of the most exciting sprint races of the year. From a cost gap perspective, all you can do is trash your car, and it costs a lot of money around there. 1 race is enough in Baku, so to have 2, there could well be some action there, he added. The issues that Christian raises is that on a street circuit, the chances of having a bad crash are increased. The walls are very close and the track is very thin, meaning that any mistake can be incredibly punishing. The teams probably don't have as many spares as they would like, and doing major repairs between the sprint race and Sunday's main event could be a challenge. Or at least that's what I thought at first, but then I tried to remember some spectacular Baku crashes and couldn't, so I looked a little deeper. When you think of street circuit crashes, you think of the ones like Mick Schumacher's in last year's Saudi Arabian Grand Prix qualifying when he split his car in half. Or, Mick Schumacher's crash in Monaco last year that split his car in half. Sorry Mick, they were just the 2 big ones from last year. But you get the idea, crashes that really ruin cars. The streets of Baku have hosted 5 races so far. In 2017, the only retirement due to a crash was Nico Hülkenberg, trying to cut a corner at low speed and forgetting there was a wall in the way stopping him. He wrecked his steering and suspension, but it wasn't anything spectacular. 2018's race featured the now famous Max Verstappen vs Daniel Ricciardo battle that resulted in both of them retiring on lap 39 after coming together. Can't blame Baku for that stupidity. Ocon turned into Raikkonen at turn 3. Again, not Baku's fault, and the collision was no worse than it would have been at a normal circuit. Sergei Sirotkin's first lap retirement also had nothing to do with it being a street circuit. Romain Grosjean crashed behind the safety car while warming his tyres, which was definitely on him. The only incident of the race that could be blamed on a street circuit was Nico Hülkenberg, hitting the wall at turn 10, where he normally would have just run off onto the grass or gravel. In 2019, the only collision-based retirements were from Daniel Ricciardo's hilarious crash with Daniel Kvyat, when he reversed into him. In 2021, there were 2 tyre failures, but otherwise everything was clean, and in 2022, there wasn't a single crash. So despite Christian's worries, in the history of Baku, there's only been 1 incident that can be blamed on the street circuit. It's not like people have been splitting cars in half every time we go to the track. In fact, the biggest ever collision at the track was caused by 2 of Horner's own drivers battling with each other for position, something that could definitely happen again this weekend. Mike Crack is another team boss that's voiced his concerns about a sprint race being held this weekend. I'm nervous about a sprint in Baku because you don't have enough time to repair if you have major damage. Straight after the sprint, you have the covers on, and then in the morning, you have only 3 or 4 hours to repair your car if it's heavily damaged. So there is a high risk with that exercise. But again, it's the same for everybody, and Baku, it's not so difficult to overtake. If you take high risk in the corners, and then there is a higher risk, but I think it will be a good show over the weekend. Maybe I am wrong. Maybe we see multiple collisions on Saturday that can be blamed on the tight streets of Baku, but there is no evidence to suggest that will happen. I understand why the team principals would be nervous about the street circuit, but if history tells us anything, it's their own drivers they need to be more worried about. So, will Max and Checo repeat the events of 2018? Will the team principals' fears be realised, or will the rather tame walls of Baku fail to cause any casualties again? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.